Hey Fish Hunter fans, this is a kayak fishing video specifically for the Fish Hunter Pro, the 3D and the 3D Plus. I'm going to show you how to tether the actual Fish Hunter to the side of your kayak. I'm going to show you a couple of screens as well later in the video on how to see what's around the kayak. So the most important thing about using the Fish Hunter when you're in a kayak is figuring out a position that you're going to actually tether it to where it's not going to be in your way while either you're fishing or you're paddling the kayak. And you've got a couple of options to do that. First thing I'm going to mention is that you have this leash inside of your box. We call it the tether. So you've got a 15-foot tether inside the box, which is very useful for the kayak fisherman. First thing you're going to want to do if you're going to use the tether is loop it through the front toe point of your Fish Hunter Pro 3D or 3D Plus. And so I'll just loop it on there. And now you have a couple of options. This is a 15-foot tether. So I actually have a spot right here behind my leg where I can actually just loop it on very easily for me. My leg's on it, so it's very protected, it's not on my way. And I can just toss this out and let it actually drag behind the kayak. As I'm paddling along and I'm paddling forward, you're gonna see that the Fish Hunter just floats behind me and it's immediately sending all of its readings directly to my smartphone, which I have currently mounted on my arm with the free mounting that comes inside of your box. So this is how I use it. The reason I use it this way is so that I can actually easily pick up my rod and I can focus on casting and catching fish versus having to play around with my phone. Plus it's in the waterproof bag, so I notice that it's protected. But a lot of the times you're out there looking for spots. So you're either bathymetric mapping, so you're going to map a new spot that you're not familiar with, or the other great feature is directional casting, which we'll talk a little bit about. So when I'm actually going to be paddling around, and going and sort of digging in deep, and maybe I've got some speed going, then what's going to happen is you're going to see, and I'll show you a screenshot later in this video, of the paddle strokes that are being picked up by the Fish Hunter that's behind me. It's so powerful, it's picking up in the surface noise that paddle stroke that I'm making. In some cases, I'm not going to want to see that paddle stroke, and it's a fairly easy change to my position here to get rid of that paddle stroke. I have the leash out at 15 feet. I'm just going to take it off of my tether spot here and I'm going to bring it back in closer to the boat. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get the Fish Hunter just at the back side of the boat. It's going to bounce up against the hull of the kayak, which is no big deal. It's not going to affect the performance. But I want to get it right to the kayak so that I'm paddling along. I'm not catching the paddle stroke in the sonar output. So let me just slide up. I generally, when I'm doing this, I like to have it sort of tethered right against the handle here. And all I do is, frankly, is I just create a little slip knot with the line. It's very easy for me to do and tether things up here and attach it to the side here. So let me just get that attached for you. Go. Keep doing it incorrectly. There we go. So I got it tethered up. Slide back into my seat position. So now I'm in my seat position. I'm in a good spot here, and the Fish Hunter is got a pretty good line length. It's just to the back of my kayak. So now as I go and I'm actually sort of digging in deep, my strokes from the actual paddling are going to be on the either side of my kayak, and they're not going to be in the display that I see on my phone. This particularly becomes important when you're doing any sort of mapping, but more important when you're using the directional casting mode. If you recall by looking at some of our other videos, one of the great things if you've got the 3D or the 3D Plus is the ability to use all 5 transducers on the bottom. And that's what's called directional. So in the directional view, when I have this sitting right beside my kayak, each of these transducers is pointing in a different direction. So this is an excellent tool when I'm sort of paddling around looking for a fishing spot, for me to be paddling in the water, and then for me to be checking this, and when it lights up red, then that tells me where the fish are. So right now, if this was to light up on the right-hand side, then I would know that based on where my kayak is, I should be throwing my line on that direction because that's where the fish are, or in front, or maybe the fish are behind me, or they're on that side. So directional casting, when it's really close to the kayak here, gives you really good information about where to cast your line in proportion to where you are physically in the water. So those are some great ways to actually attach the Fish Hunter using the 15-foot tether. Very easy. I've put a fishing hook on the end of this line so I can take it off even easier. And then ultimately, as you guys know, I can just tether it on the end of my fishing line here. And then if I actually want to reach some spots maybe closer to shore and just see what's going on out there, that's a very easy change for me to make to check the spots. So that's basically how you do it. If you want to just tether it to your kayak and focus on your fishing, then you're certainly able to do that with all of the Fish Hunter products. If you have any questions, just see us online at fishhunter.com.